Hello everyone, Ryan Esparza here from the El Paso Society for Musicians of the Future. The orchestra has many different instruments which can be divided into various sections, including string, woodwind, brass, and percussion instruments. Over the next few videos, we will go into each section in depth, and to start things off, we will be discussing the members of the string instrument family and their rich histories. So, let's jump right into it. The violin owes its origins to inspiration from older string instruments such as the European lyra and other Arabic string instruments such as the rebab. During the 1500s came the development of the violin, and from this time through the 1700s was the classical period of violin making, especially in Italy where many skilled luthiers lived and worked. This era included famous violin makers such as Jacob Stainer and Antonio Stradivari. You may have heard of Stradivari's instruments. Many of the Stradivarius instruments are very well renowned and are even prized collection pieces in museums such as the Smithsonian. Over time, the violin became a mainstay in the orchestra, popularized by composers such as Claudio Monteverdi. Eventually, some changes were made to the design, such as extending the neck and using steel strings rather than strings made from animal intestines. Today, the violin is an immensely popular instrument with famous players such as Itzhak Perlman and Joshua Bell. Modern uses for the violin and its characteristic sound include not only use in orchestra playing, but also jazz, country, and pop music, which may even use recently developed electric violins for an added flair in their music. The history of the viola occurs alongside the creation of the violin, though no one knows for sure the exact time of its own creation. Scholars argue whether the viola was invented before or after the violin. At that time in history, the word viola, or viol, was used to describe all string instruments and was used in such terms as viola da braccio, meaning viola played in the arms, which described all the various instruments that gave rise to the modern violin and viola. Whatever the case, the viola eventually joined the orchestra after finding its spot in the music of Mozart and Paganini, who didn't use it in all of the compositions, but the use of it eventually led to its inclusion in the orchestra. The viola fills in the middle ranges of the string section, harmonizing with the higher violin. The viola has not only established its place in the orchestra, but has also found its place in more modern music, being used in recordings of songs from artists such as the Beatles and Imagine Dragons. The cello developed out of ancient instruments such as the harp and the lyre. During the 16th century, the first bass violin or violon designs were drawn. The instruments were extremely large because lower pitches could only be achieved by making a bigger instrument. Fast forward to the 18th century. Antonio Stradivari developed the cello size that we know today. Standardization of the cello's size led to the emergence of virtuosos, since the instrument could now be used for much more than just bass techniques. Fuller harmonies, tremolo, and even rich melodies now put the cello on the same level with other solo instruments. A little later, cultural changes such as the French Revolution shifted the preference from a softer sound catered only to a few exclusive people to a fuller sound performed to large audiences. Because sound had to travel farther to large audiences, improvements were made, such as raising the cello's bridge and extending the fingerboard to enhance its volume and clarity. Today, the cello holds a place as one of the most popular instruments. A new genre called cello rock has even emerged. The cello's rich sound, coupled with its versatile nature, attracts many orchestral audiences. The bass developed in the 1500s out of an interest to complete the bottom end of the viol family of early string instruments. The bass, as we know it today, however, did not develop until the 1600s when German craftsmen changed the dimensions, actually shortening the overall instrument from its previous dimensions. The bass stayed the lowest member of the string family aside from more experimental instruments such as the octabass, which today is either found in museums or in rarer occasions in orchestras such as the Montreal Symphony Orchestra. The bass originally only had 3 strings that were tuned depending on the performer's taste. This changed in the early 20th century when a 4th string was added and tuning was standardized. Today, the bass is a very widely used instrument across a variety of styles, from the orchestra to the rhythm sections of jazz combos as well as bluegrass bands and electric bass playing in pop bands. The bass has become a standard instrument in a plethora of musical genres. Early stringed and keyboard instruments such as the dulcimer, clavichord, and harpsichord evolved into what we know now as the piano. The harpsichord was a popular instrument of the Baroque era. However, its sound range was very limited. Desiring an instrument with a wide range of sound, allowing more musical expression, a harpsichord maker by the name of Bartolomeo Cristofori developed the first piano. Its strings were struck by hammers instead of plucked, in the case of the harpsichord. This facilitated the projection of sound and enabled pianists to play both soft and loud. The invention of the piano opened the door to many great composers whose works are still played. Today, technology has allowed us to make digital pianos, and the era of contemporary music awaits more composers and new styles. The piano covers a wide range of music, such as jazz and pop music, as well as orchestral music. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen, a brief history of the stringed instruments of the orchestra. Thank you so much for joining us as we dived into the world of music. We hope you learned a lot about the backgrounds of some of the instruments that you already know today. Stay safe and never stop learning.